So, before we get into the devlog for week 12, I want to take a second to stress that this is yet another abnormal week for us. I know I talked about it last time when we had a slow week, but this week has seen Pagan getting back into her PhD. She'll be working on Cyclone in the background while I focus on maintaining the Twitch channel. So, expect less live development from her this week and more silly puppy hedgehog thing hours as we settle into this major shift, but rest assured that we're still under development and committed to bringing you updates as frequently as we can. And when we don't have much to talk about, we'll talk about stuff like game design documents. Speaking of, this week we're going to talk specifically about that exact thing. It's one of the most important parts of game development, so let's get into the game design document. A game design document is the blueprint for the development of a game. It describes everything from the game mechanics, storyline, and art style to level theming, UI, and technical details. Someone who knows nothing about your game should be able to read through the document and understand what your game is about, how the gameplay works, how the levels should be designed, and be on the same general page as anyone else who reads the document separately. This is about making sure a team has the same general vision throughout the course of development. Ideally, the GDD, as we'll call it, should be mostly fleshed out before any of the actual development starts. Of course, you may want to go back and change some things throughout development or fill in extra details as you refine the gameplay, but going in completely blind is a recipe for disaster even if you think you have it all nailed down in your head. But we're making a Sonic fan game. Do we really need a game design document? We've already got the blueprints for a Sonic game right in front of us with multiple iterations and generations of Sonic games, right? No pun intended. Well, obviously, we should at least include the things that make Sonic Entropy unique, like our storylines or what levels we're including and any gameplay mechanics that we've added or changed. But since we're modeling the gameplay around Sonic Unleashed, do we really need to elaborate on generic stuff like how Sonic controls and what abilities he has, or how common objects like springs or dash panels work? Anyone who's played Sonic Unleashed or even Generations understands all of this, so can't we skip it? Absolutely not. Go ask a friend to describe to you in detail how Sonic's homing attack works. Pause the video and go do it. I'll wait. Now that you're back, let's take that same homing attack that I'm sure you asked your friend about and see if they've covered all the bases. I'm willing to bet that they missed a question or 2 or 10 when compared to what we have to cover in this document. Right, so you press the specify button while Sonic's in the air, he launches towards the targeted enemy, and then the enemy dies. Simple, right? Wrong. Can Sonic always homing attack if he's in the air, or is something currently preventing him from doing so? What about targeting an enemy? Is it automatic? Does it apply only to enemies, or can Sonic home onto some other objects? Can the player adjust which object is targeted? If so, what determines how the player changes targets? When Sonic homing attacks an enemy, what is his model doing? Is he just T-posing through the air, or is there a special animation? How does an enemy die when it's attacked? Does it immediately explode, or does it get knocked back and then explode when it hits something? What if it hits another enemy? What happens to both of them? What if the enemy doesn't hit anything? Does it just fall into the void forever? And what if it's not an enemy? What happens if you homing attack some other sort of object? What happens when the homing attack is done? Does Sonic just fall to the ground? Does he swap to a new animation? At what point does the animation swap happen? Does this affect his momentum in any way? Can he do another homing attack? Can he do something else? What about if your game has other characters? Can they all homing attack? Does something different happen in their homing attacks? Does it work the same fundamentally but with different animations for each character? Now, you or your friend might be able to answer all these questions now that you have them, but is everyone on your team on the same page? Will you remember all of this when it comes to actually implementing a homing attack into your game? Will you remember to handle all of the edge cases or the different scenarios where it might work differently? That is why you need a game design document, and why you still need to detail the functionality of well-established mechanics, because without being able to not only keep track of the little details for yourself, but for your whole team, even the most experienced of developers would have a difficult time designing a game that meets all of the demands that players can throw at it. And that's just the best case scenario for if they intend on working on the project solo. At worst, it would likely crumble to pieces in a team-based setting, with the chances of failure increasing exponentially with every new member added. All of that to say, if you do all of the necessary prep work first to map out your path, you'll have a much easier time navigating the increasingly demanding maze ahead of you. And that's a skill that you can translate to any path you walk in life. But for now, that about does it for this week. Remember to subscribe to our channel if you want to stay up to date on our fan game and level editor, drop a like if you want to help us grow, and subscribe to Blitzy on Twitch if you want to keep up to date on the status of the game in real time. Though, keep in mind that this week in particular, my wife is starting her PhD again and she's going to be working on Sonic, Entropy, and Cyclone in the background, but feel free to ask any questions you may have about the game or its progress. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week.